How do you know what's really in the food you're eating? Where it was grown? What it contains? Is the label telling the truth?
There's a lot of dirty little secrets that a lot of consumers will probably never know.
We thought it was a safe product. We thought it was safe for our kids, and it's not.
How much do you think the food industry relies on consumers not know what's going on?
That's part of the business model, that the food industry wants consumers to stay ignorant.
Food fraud is ripping people off.
How lucrative is it?
It's very lucrative.
We're not taking food fraud seriously in Australia. We should.
How common is it?
I don't think we really know. Unless there's a reason to go and look, we actually don't really know.
We live in a society where we trust the brands, but we also trust that sitting behind that is a strong regulator.
With a team of forensic scientists, we've tested some of the most common products in your pantry. Uncovering damning results. We'll expose a complicated web of supply chains and regulations that are meant to keep you safe, and show you what's really behind the label in one of the largest public food investigations ever undertaken in Australia. Most of us don't have the time or the science to test what's really in the food we eat. So we rely on the labels, we rely on the brands, and we rely on the supermarkets. Now we test that trust and reveal how easy it is for Australian shoppers to be duped.
How little we know about what we're eating.
Barely a week passes without a food scare. A recall, a contamination, a label that does not tell the full story.
ByHeart is recalling all batches of its whole nutrition infant formula cans and Anywhere pack.
Nestle has issued a global recall of some baby formula products.
Food fraud is different. It is deception for profit. Cheaper ingredients substituted, products diluted, origins falsified, expiry dates altered. It's hard to detect, and in Australia, we rarely look for it systematically. A lot of labels are lying to consumers.
A lot of the labels are not true.
Food fraud globally is estimated to generate tens of billions of dollars a year.
It's enormous, and there's lots of opportunity here.
It's low risk and high reward.
It's not easy to detect food fraud, and so what we're seeing now is lots and lots of issues around what's been promised on the product and whether it's true.
Some food fraud scandals do get attention.
British firms have been told to test all their processed beef products for traces of horse meat or pork within a week, but no one is testing for traces of other species such as cat, rat or dog.
5 people allegedly died from consuming adulterated milk.
Others get none.
You could be eating minced horse. That's pretty shocking for the average person.
But they're happening. Australia's food regulation is largely built around immediate safety risks. Contamination, pathogens, toxins. Experts say it is far less equipped to test where it came from, what else it contains, and whether the label is true.
We're not investigating, we're not enforcing, and the gaps are there, creates the opportunity in and of itself. The lack of enforcement creates the opportunity for various actors within supply chains at any point to swap out or misrepresent what they're selling in some way. Can ultimately cause great harm.
To find out what's really on Australian shelves, we worked with leading forensic laboratory Source Certain. The scientists work internationally with the FBI, Scotland Yard and Interpol. Locally, they work with the Australian Federal Police. The lab tested products bought from Coles, Woolworths, Aldi and IGA stores, as well as some smaller retailers around the country. How confident are you that you could find food fraud on a supermarket shelf?
Very confident. If you walk into a supermarket, and there's opportunity in every one of those aisles for there to be misrepresentation. I'm coming up 20-something years as a forensic scientist and an investigator in this supply chain space, so nothing much surprises me.
The soil, water and climate where food is grown leaves behind a unique chemical fingerprint. By comparing that fingerprint with verified samples from around the world, scientists can show where it was grown.
We measure it on a couple of different instruments. One of them is a mass spectrometer, and what we're looking for is all of the metals that you find on the periodic table. So a couple of examples of those might be manganese, for example, or maybe rubidium. We then program the mass spectrometer to measure the metals that are in there. It tells us whereabouts it's been grown. So if you compare Italy to China in this example, the metals that end up in the tomatoes are different if they're from Italy as opposed to China. And so what we measure is we measure those and then we come up with the finding as to whether it's Italian or Chinese. It effectively becomes a fingerprint for the product itself.
We commissioned a major test of tomato products. 39 brands, 221 products, more than 900 individual verifications. 1 in 4 products had a problem.
Either failed or were subject to some further investigation, which indicates that it hasn't come from the origin that is claimed.
Which is an alarming number.
It is alarming, especially in a category where, some of these products in the, a few dollars. And so if you go down the supermarket shelf, there's quite a lot of shelf space allocated to them. So the volume of engagement with the supply chain, that's quite high too.
Legos is one of the country's most well-known processed tomato brands, owned by US food giant Simplot.
Legos, Australian-made with quality ingredients for more than 100 years.
We tested 43 Legos products with different batch numbers across multiple states and supermarkets. Testing shows it has a problem with its paste. While its diced tomatoes and passata passed origin testing, 27 paste products failed. That's more than 80% that had chemical profiles consistent with China. That matters because Lego's marketing strongly emphasises Australian-grown tomatoes, local farms and local growers.
It was a surprise, primarily because they make such a clear Australian claim on the front of pack that it was a surprise that we found the Chinese tomatoes in there. It is not a surprise at all that we're finding Chinese tomatoes in Australia.
Lego's owner, Simplot, declined an interview, but says it is confident its Australian-grown claims are accurate. It says its supplier has sophisticated traceability capabilities and supply chain documentation traces the failed products back to Australian paddocks where the tomatoes were grown, but it says it hasn't done forensic testing. Most Coles Italian tomato paste didn't pass. The same with Aldi's private label brand Romano tomato paste. Both brands say they're made with Italian or Australian tomatoes. Rosso Gargano also tested positive for Chinese origin. 5 products failed. Aldi told us it rejected the claims and said it partners with reputable suppliers who've assured them the products are from where they say they are. The importer of Rosso Gargano said it rejected the findings and has access to detailed traceability data. Coles declined an interview and rejected the test results. Despite our forensic testing, it said there was no evidence its home brand Italian tomato paste came from China. Source Certain says it has more than 98% certainty the failed tomatoes came from China. more than half could be narrowed down to the region of Xinjiang.
Xinjiang is a very large exporter of tomato products, specifically paste. The issue with Xinjiang is globally it is recognised as a region that is subject to or susceptible to forced labour.
In 2021, the United States banned tomato imports from Xinjiang over concerns they were produced with Uyghur forced labour. This satellite image shows a compound researchers say was used as a Uyghur re-education camp. Harvested tomatoes surround it.
So we know crime against humanity is happening in the Uyghur region.
Nirola Alima is part of the Uyghur community. She left Xinjiang in 2011 and now works to expose forced labour in global supply chains after a family member was imprisoned.
China is the master on hiding their atrocity. They use this entire big propaganda system to making the re-education camp, making the forced labour program, some kind of doing a favour to Uyghur people.
This is a video of a Chinese company located in Xinjiang that says it exports some of its tomatoes to Australia. It has links to XPCC, a state-run paramilitary and business organisation that runs factories and businesses.
XPCC is being sanctioned by the US government because of atrocity against the Uyghur and other ethnic group in Xinjiang.
Nirola says she was shocked Australia hadn't followed the US and banned tomatoes likely to have been sourced from Xinjiang.
So who cares about those forced labor? Let's just hide this and selling to the market. I also think it's very unfair for the Australia farmers who never involved in the forced labor, who actually paying really well to their employees.
The Chinese government has consistently denied allegations that it is committing human rights offences against Uyghurs. The testing can point to likely geographic origin, but it cannot determine whether forced labour was involved in producing the product. How accurate is the test?
We're never 100% certain from a science point of view. None of the sciences are perfect like that.
But it can be close to.
The findings are robust. So like when we issue a finding, we stand behind that finding.
These are some of the tomato products that passed, including some Legos products.
I think the investigation we did demonstrates this is systemic.
Supply chains are complex. Food fraud can occur at any stage of the process.
So in all those different exchanges of transactions through the supply chain of each of those individual ingredients and the sub-ingredients, the opportunities for fraud are almost endless.
The former boss of Australia's consumer watchdog, Alan Fells, says companies should be held accountable.
I'm very disturbed by it. Australia needs to take food fraud far more seriously, apply the law more strongly, and have better arrangements and prioritisation by the relevant regulators to stamp it out. The ACCC should take punitive action in the courts if their laboratory tests are true.
How much faith should consumers have about the labelling on the products that they buy?
Well, consumers need to have complete faith in the labels on the products they buy, but they can't at the moment.
Australia's food regulation is designed to mainly protect us from immediate safety risks. Food Standards Australia, New Zealand sets the rules. States and local councils enforce many of them. The Federal Agriculture Department checks some imported food. The ACCC can act on misleading claims. no single regulator is clearly responsible for detecting food fraud. Turmeric is one of the world's most popular spices. It's used in cooking, supplements, and traditional medicine. And that popularity makes it a target for adulteration. The lab tested 11 brands, 28 products from 14 stores. 3 brands failed.
What we found was a little surprising. So 3 different brands had a dilution and or adulteration piece, and it's not uncommon as soon as you dilute it to then be trying to make up the colour. One of them was a Hoyt's brand.
Hoyt's is one of the best-known spice brands in Australia.
We first had a look at it under the microscope just to see what they looked like, and it actually becomes really obvious. So this is the good one. If we move through, this is the Hoyt sample, right, which is the one we identified as having a non-turmeric component, and you can see, firstly, just on observation alone, completely different. Darker bits of turmeric, but also lots of dark bits.
The dark bits are iron oxide.
What we found were 2 things. Inside the Hoyt's brand in particular, we found that that had been adulterated by a mineral component, specifically an iron oxide. Inside that, we could see different phases of the iron, which indicates it's actually kind of a crushed up rock, if you like. An actual iron oxide has been added, which is not uncommon from an adulteration point of view. It's added for colour, it's also added for weight.
3 out of the 4 turmeric products tested also contained lead chromate, a lead-based yellow pigment used in paints and plastics that is not allowed to be added to food in Australia. It isn't the first time Hoyt's has faced scrutiny. In 2017, the ACCC fined the Melbourne-based family company over oregano that was bulked up with olive leaves. Source Certain tested 2 packets of gourmet organic. Both failed for purity. It tested 1 bottle of Simply Organic, which also failed. Further testing is needed to establish food fraud. Gourmet Organic calls its turmeric the finest. A second lab found it had been bulked up with a cheaper starchy plant-based ingredient.
What we found with this one is it's all really clumped together. Another type of plant material, but non-turmeric.
A second lab found unidentified plant material in this jar of Simply Organic turmeric, which markets itself as pure.
We haven't been identified exactly what that plant material is, but it's not turmeric.
Hoyt said it takes these matters seriously and was carrying out further investigations. It said it believes any metals are at safe levels and required more information. Gourmet Organic said it was commissioning its own testing and honesty is integral to its business. It said some additional plant matter was normal in milled spices. Simply Organic did not respond to questions.
Nothing shocks me in the food industry. Anything is possible.
Food fraud has infiltrated global supply chains here and overseas. With access to one of the biggest private food fraud databases, we'll show you the disturbing scandals going on around the world that aren't always being made public. From horse meat recently found in products marketed as beef in Paraguay, Peru and Mexico. Dog and cat meat discovered in meat products sold in Brazil. Tons of cheap livestock oil meant for animal feed sold as edible oil in Vietnam. In Italy, adulterated extra virgin olive oil was mixed with colouring to give it a green hue. Some products end up in Australia, including fake honey made with sugar syrups. How widespread is it globally?
We don't know. But what we do know is wherever we look, we find it.
Janine Curl has spent her career working across Australia's food regulatory system. With a law and science background, she was an enforcement officer for the New South Wales Food Authority and is an expert in food fraud. Is it getting worse?
Oh, we wouldn't know in Australia because we don't routinely check for it.
The UK and parts of Europe have dedicated food units to tackle food fraud. Australia does not. Are you saying that there should be a food fraud unit?
Oh yes, in addition to that, food businesses should be required to ensure the food is labelled properly, and that requires an assessment of the vulnerabilities for fraud.
It's not hard to find ingredients used to adulterate food if you know where to look. Sites like Alibaba, the world's largest online business-to-business wholesale marketplace, openly markets cheaper substitutes. From honey adulterated with cheap rice syrups that can pass official tests, to bulk extra virgin olive oil that isn't what it claims to be, making it harder to know what you're really eating.
One of the things that's interesting about food fraud is that the type of things that can happen inside a supply chain, inside a food product, are really wide and diverse.
Consumers pay a premium for eggs, which aren't from caged chickens, believing they're making a more ethical choice. But some eggs may not be what they claim to be. More than 20 brands of eggs were tested from 4 states and dozens of sites. One brand from South Australia failed repeatedly.
We found a cage eggs in a Woolworths branded carton, which indicated that it was meant to be cage-free. That particular line or product line was then retested 5 further times in different locations, and all of those following 5 cartons all included the same finding. So cage eggs in a carton that was claimed to be cage-free. The label is misrepresenting the product.
And what sort of testing did you do?
Yeah, so we get that from the trace elements that are in the egg, right? So this is, again, intrinsic to the product, independent of all the labels. We can actually get from that fingerprint an indication about how it's been grown in this example of the eggs.
Woolworths declined an interview and rejected the findings. In a statement, it said it takes product integrity seriously, and its suppliers are required to comply with origin and food labelling requirements. When an issue is raised, it acts promptly to formally investigate with the supplier. Australians love seafood, but most of us have no idea where it comes from, and we're willing to pay more for Australian. In supermarkets, country of origin labelling has been mandatory since 2018.
The retail part of it was actually okay, and part of that I think is because there's a regulatory requirement to label where it's come from.
But the food service sector supplying restaurants, hotels, cafes, hospitals and aged care has only now come under the same requirements. The industry was given more than 2 years to get ready. Source Certain obtained 19 pieces of frozen farmed prawns and white fish from 3 major distributors.
We intercepted samples from 3 national supply chains for food service. So we got covert samples from those supply chains and actually tested to see what was going on.
One of the 3 prawn products sold as Australian failed origin testing. Farmed whitefish was even more problematic.
We found about 40 to 45% of those samples didn't verify, so they were meant to be Australian and were not. So what we found with all those ones that failed is almost all of those products had come in from Vietnam.
And can you explain the test?
We measure 70 plus elements inside the fish, right? So that fingerprint that we determine intrinsic to the fish is a representation of where it's grown. So in the case of most of this whitefish, it's farmed. So it's the farm location. If this is what's happening, it's hard if you're an Australian seafood producer to compete with that.
Food fraud is a breach of trust. It dupes customers into buying food that isn't what it claims to be, while honest businesses are forced to compete on an unlevel playing field.
None of your results is surprising to me.
One senior executive became so concerned about imported tomato supply chains that he conducted his own investigation.
I'm an investor, I'm a chairman, I manage private equity funds, I'm an investment banker. I understand the capital system very well. And if there is no safety valve, then people will take advantage of other people. And the biggest cost in lots of cases, especially in the food industry, is labour.
Hussein Rafai is the former chair of SPC, one of Australia's biggest fruit and tomato processors. He says cheap overseas labour undercuts Australian growers and manufacturers, including SPC. Do we have a level playing field?
Far from it. We actually are at a huge disadvantage. We are competing around the world with countries that use modern slavery, so they're getting a very, very cheap labour.
How confident are you that there is slave labour going on in Italian tomatoes?
I went to Italy and I investigated that myself.
How did you prepare for the trip?
I went undercover. I took on a whole new persona as a procurement manager out of Egypt. So I met with a private detective who fitted me out with spying equipment, glasses with cameras in them. I was wearing a wig. I got a new name, and through a contact of mine in the food industry, he put me on his website as being his buying manager. I got business cards. I got a SIM card out of Cairo. So for all practical purposes, I was an Egyptian buyer.
So you went to extreme lengths?
A very extreme length. In an area where if you step the wrong way, you could be in danger.
Hussein Rafai went undercover in southern Italy, an area long associated with labour exploitation and organised crime.
Nice to meet you.
This vision shows him meeting with Italian tomato processing companies who say they supply our supermarkets.
Who you sell to Australia?
Woolworths, Scopes, the main big chain in Australia. We do diced or chopped tomatoes and passata in 500. Cherry tomatoes we only do in 400 grams. Okay. Our worldwide Coles, yes, Coles and Woolworths in Australia.
The only reason they can supply at that price is because of the slave labour.
Rafai says it's impossible to draw a straight line between a discounted tin of tomatoes and exploited workers. The supply chain is layered with deniability.
One of them becomes a senior guy who does a deal with the farmer, and the farmer then does a deal with the producer. So if you talk to the producer says, I don't have any slave labor, and they're willing to sign any certificate that you want, because technically speaking, they don't. And they say, well, it's the responsibility of the farmer. The farmer says, well, it's not me, it's the responsibility of the contractor. And once you talk to those guys, the heartbreak comes in. I met with the Nigerian immigrants, and I spoke to them. I visited where they lived. They make 25 euros a day, out of which 10 euros goes for their accommodation, 7 or 8 euros goes for their food, 4 or 5 euros go for their transportation from the house to the field. So that leaves them 2 or 3 euros. Italy do utilize a slave labor, modern slave labor. That product is being dumped into the Australian market to the detriment of Australian producers and to the detriment of Australian farmers. Our local industry just simply cannot compete with that. Slowly but surely, this will have an absolutely irreversible negative effect on our industry.
Coles said human rights are a priority and it has an ethical sourcing policy. Woolworths said it takes any claims regarding product integrity seriously and acts promptly when an issue is raised. For the first time, we can reveal what Australia's border authorities are finding. We collated 9 years of data and found only a fraction of imported food is inspected. Testing for dangerous contaminants has declined since 2019. 98% of testing at the border is compliant, yet hundreds of products still fail each year, including rice with arsenic, E. coli in frozen seafood, Salmonella in spices, Listeria in cheese. Only one product, honey, is tested routinely for adulteration at a rate of 5%. Experts say low levels of testing create opportunities for unsafe and mislabelled food to slip through. Is that system working?
We could actually enhance that system by understanding what foods are vulnerable to substitution and require testing of a certain percentage based on authenticity testing as well. There is an indication or a suggestion that a lot of the fraud risk is actually at the border, coming in internationally in imported foods.
The department said it operates a risk-based import inspection system and works with other agencies. India recorded the highest number of failures in the border data we analysed, with salmonella in spices among the recurring problems. Unlike Australia, Indian authorities have specialist food fraud enforcement teams. Recent raids have uncovered rotten frozen chicken being supplied to local hotels. Dozens of drums of adulterated pickles sold to grocery stores, restaurants and hotels, seized from an illegal factory. Fraud isn't the only way the food system can fail consumers. Almost once a week, a product is pulled off the shelves over an undeclared allergen. Nearly half were first detected by a customer, not companies or the regulator.
It means that we are not systematically controlling for the labelling authenticity, or that labelling is representative of what's in the package.
Adelaide mum of two, Lily Cope, learnt the hard way. She couldn't understand why her 2-year-old with a dairy allergy became violently ill late last year.
My daughter ended up being really lethargic, unresponsive, went to urgent care and then got sent to hospital twice.
As she was deteriorating, what did you see?
I'd actually been sent a recall from my sister that there was like a contamination in their product. There was a dairy contamination and their product actually now was containing dairy.
And you bought the product because it said it was dairy-free?
We thought it was a safe product, safe for our kids, and it's not.
How long was she affected?
A couple of weeks, about 3-4 weeks, physically.
So they never offered you compensation for medical costs?
Nothing. No, just a reimbursement on the products that we'd already paid for that had affected my daughter.
The company still carries a prominent dairy-free label. Since the recall, most now include a small statement on the back noting it was made in a site that handles milk.
They're just trying to cover their backs, because if something does happen again, they can go, oh, we've got a stamp, and not be liable.
Coco Bella apologised and said it fixed the problem and had strengthened its allergen testing. These are not isolated cases. This family purchased another contaminated product in March this year.
I knew as soon as I drank the coconut water that it was the coconut water I had the reaction to. I felt my throat start to close up.
Labelled as dairy-free. Zach's been anaphylactic to dairy since he was 6 months old.
Mum wanted to look into it a bit more, so I showed her exactly what the raw seed product was, and she called up the company and they pretty well just told her that it wasn't them, it was us. There's no way that there could have been dairy in that product because it was 100% dairy-free and 100% vegan, claiming on the bottle. There definitely was dairy in that product.
Other people got sick in the meantime.
The product, manufactured in Vietnam, was not pulled off the shelves until March 31, 29 days after the New South Wales regulator first became aware of the problem.
I think they should act a lot quicker. It should have been taken a lot more serious and actions should have been a lot quicker than they were.
It is a big deal for Zach. He nearly died. So what price do you put on that? Surely these companies who make millions of dollars should be held accountable.
The company apologised for the contamination and said it had changed its processes. It said 15 customers got sick. The New South Wales regulator said the recall delay was due to testing and that it was still investigating the matter. Consumers aren't just being duped by food fraud and poor labelling. Food scientists are being paid to engineer products to be cheaper, more addictive, and last longer on the shelf. While marketing deceives consumers into thinking they're healthy, and it's all legal. Min Shin Tan spent almost a decade as a food technologist for some of the biggest food companies. Now he's speaking out about how the system works from the inside.
Food technologist is basically the person that develops the different types of processed food and ultra-processed food that you see in the supermarket, from developing the different types of textures, flavors, mouthfeel, also responsible for the packaging.
So you work with the marketing team to decide what will sell, is that right?
Yes, exactly that. It's our responsibility and roles to basically create a great sensory experience in that product, and that is matching whatever marketing wants to put on their claims.
So you were really helping make products that potentially were making people sick.
It occurred to me that why was I a person that's creating these products that could potentially cause harm to people? You need people and consumers to keep coming back. So in essence, these products were going to be made in a way that was irresistible.
Food technologists like Min have a name for it: the bliss point.
I also like to call this the irresistible trifecta of fat, sugar, salt, and also in conjunction with mouthfeel, texture, and things like crunchiness. We cannot turn down those things because we crave them.
So consumers have no idea what's going on?
No, absolutely not. And the food industry wants to keep it that way.
What do you think is the biggest thing consumers don't understand about the food they're eating?
They are getting fooled by the food marketing every single day, that they are buying products that they believe are healthy for them when they're really not.
Okay, so tell me about this one, which is low carb, high protein, 100% natural.
The thing is with the word 100% natural, this is not a regulated term at all. There's no legal definition for natural. So a lot of food marketeers like to use the word natural. Again, looking at the back of pack, an ingredients list, this has ingredients that probably may not be seeming natural, like emulsifiers, tapioca starch, and flavors. So what constitutes natural? So it's an easy free pass for marketeers to use in the food industry. This is ultra-processed food. Okay.
Real fruity sticks, clearly aimed at kids.
A really nice, smiley packaging and graphics. It's 60% sugar. 60% sugar.
If you need any further proof our food labelling laws are failing us, this is it. This product, Rafferty's Garden Mixed Berry Mini Yogurt Buttons, is marketed to babies as young as 10 months. The front says 99% fruit and yogurt. The fine print on the back says it's almost 63% sugar, with most of that added.
They want them to start them basically at a younger age so that their palates are going to be used to a higher tolerance and threshold for sweetness. And when you start them young, then basically it'll carry them on for the rest of their lives.
Few people understand Australia's food system better than Professor Mark Lawrence. He was the principal nutritionist at Australia's National Food Standards Agency, FSANZ, and later served on its board. He is concerned that the current regulatory system is no longer fit for purpose. Now he's speaking out.
The food standards programs are world-class in Australia for food safety concerns. Excellent at protecting against microbiological concerns or toxicology concerns. But when the issue is about more chronic problems, obesity, diabetes, heart disease and so on, the policy settings and the risk assessment approaches just are not adequate, are not fit for purpose for ultra-processed foods. We're now having food coming from factories. They are soft drinks, savoury snacks like crisps, infant formula, sweet snacks, sweet biscuits, lollies, confectionery, and so on.
And how pervasive are they in our food system now?
Incredibly pervasive. Tens of thousands of these products are now in the marketplace, and they make up nearly half of the energy in the Australian diet. We think in children and adolescents, it's a lot higher based on the trends that we're seeing.
You were on the FSANZ board for 8 years. How pervasive and what sort of influence do lobby groups have on the system?
The lobbyists are really powerful.
In your view, do you think food lobby groups have too much influence?
In many cases they do, yes. We do see it with a lot of policy making. They get a seat at the table, they've got those resources and so on.
And how about the FSANZ board? Does that have any industry representatives on it?
Yes, it does, and that's written into the legislation.
Can it cause conflicts?
People don't just come in and then just sit on their hands and don't say anything. Of course they're going to be presenting their case.
He says while there are conflict of interest procedures in place, it gives industry a powerful voice in shaping policy.
Why does it have to be at the table? And why does it have to have a vote? Why can't they be observers and then called in to provide that expertise and so on? And that's the way a lot of other policy-making committees happen around the world. I'm involved with the World Health Organisation. The industry would not be getting a vote at the table in that sort of environment.
Lawrence says the Health Star rating system, a nutrient scoring algorithm overseen by FSANZ, has been gamed by the industry. So who designed the algorithm?
Well, the algorithm was largely designed by someone who was employed by the ultra-processed food manufacturer.
And who was that? Oh,
it's one of the large breakfast cereal people, and they make snacks and so on as well. It was an ultra-processed food manufacturer, yes. If nothing changes, the trajectory is not consistent with health and sustainability into the future.
Star ratings. If you had a few words to describe it, what would it be?
Disappointing, misleading, on a train that's heading in the wrong direction.
Out of a maximum 5-star rating, Nestlé's Milo cereal has 4 stars, despite being high in sugar. Coke Zero has 3.5 stars, despite having virtually no nutrients. This Sanitarium up-and-go breakfast drink with flavours, gums and stabilisers has 5 stars.
Most consumers believe that 2.5 stars and more represents a healthy food. 3/4 of these ultra-processed foods were displaying 2.5 or more stars. So This is a health halo. The system was informing these consumers that this ultra-processed food was healthy.
At the request of federal, state and territory ministers, the Food Standards Body, FSANZ, says it is independently assessing whether health star ratings should be made mandatory.
When it's a flawed design, mandatory is not the way you want to go. Even just this year, Canada now, but throughout South America, Latin America and elsewhere, they have warning labels. Now, these are much simpler for consumers to understand. So there's these black octagon shapes, and they just say, high sugar, high salt.
FSANZ said warning labels would require government approval and supporting evidence. It said while public health is its top priority, it must consider costs to industry when developing food standards. Australian shoppers are being deceived daily, and it's clear food fraud, misleading labels and misleading marketing is everywhere. The brutal reality is the modern food system has become so global, so complex and so industrialised, food regulators have struggled to keep up.
We all walk around thinking that in modern Australia we have food safety standards and enforcement to back that trust up. And what we're seeing now is that trust is probably misplaced.
The problem is not just what we found, it's what the regulators already knew. New South Wales politician Abigail Boyd used a parliamentary process to get access to a trove of secret papers from the food regulator, the New South Wales Food Authority. Thousands of pages detailing hundreds of companies ranging from aged care, hospitals, egg producers, grocery chains, breaching food safety laws between 2022 and 2026 with little consequence.
Continual lack of action, improvement notice after improvement notice, and nothing sort of escalates from that. I wouldn't even call it a slap on the wrist. I think there's this prevailing myth that companies will just do the right thing and the regulator is just there to point them in the right direction if they accidentally get things wrong. Whereas what we know is that these companies, when they are focusing on their bottom line, they cut corners, and they cut corners until they're caught. So I think that when we have this, particularly these large companies, and there's a lot of large companies in these documents that really don't get any sort of penalty at all.
More than 500 businesses in the documents we searched were breaching food safety laws, from poor hygiene to failing to report dangerous bacteria. All were issued improvement notices, a formal letter to fix the breaches. Some businesses were repeat offenders.
Time after time, we're seeing these aged care facilities having, real hygiene issues, lots and lots of expired foods that aren't labelled for what is, really vulnerable people who are eating this food.
Cater Care, which provides 10 million meals to the health and aged care sector, was a repeat offender between 2023 and 2026. Expired food, unhygienic conditions, pests, unsafe food handling. The penalty? 9 improvement notices.
We have this very large company feeding millions of people and not being held accountable for some of the most basic hygiene and food standards. That is such a bad reflection on the regulator.
Cater Care said the incidents were isolated and led to further training, inspections and performance management. The New South Wales Food Authority oversees more than 14,000 food businesses, including meat processors, dairy manufacturers and aged care food services. Not one lost its licence in 7 years. local councils regulate more than 57,000 food businesses, including cafes and restaurants. But the worst documents were placed under privilege, blocking Four Corners and the public from accessing them. And they detail what's been happening in New South Wales, including minced horse disguised as beef or lamb. What are some of the more shocking things you read in the files?
A really concerning number of illegal knackeries, a lot of horses and other animals ending up in what people would assume to be, minced beef or minced lamb. Mice found in products. There was metal shavings found in bread products. And there was a really concerning number of, products that were supposed to be dairy-free that were not dairy-free and were only caught by accident.
Why isn't the public being told about this?
It's pretty shocking. I mean, if you think that a rodent can end up in your food or that you could be eating minced horse, that's pretty shocking for the average person. So the fact that they're being so secretive makes me very concerned that they're not doing the right thing or taking the right action when it comes to these issues. So I do worry about how much isn't being found simply because we're not doing proactive monitoring.
The New South Wales Food Authority declined an interview, but it said it regularly tests foods for safety and uses a risk-based approach to protect public health. It's not just food. The same vulnerabilities that affect food can also be exploited in alcohol. Alcohol can contain dangerous levels of methanol through contamination, poor production, or deliberate adulteration.
So the methanol is definitely a health risk, right? It can be toxic and can result in blindness and all sorts of things. So it's risky.
If the methanol is present in high enough levels, it can be deadly. 2 Australians died in Laos in 2024 from methanol poisoning. We wanted to see if alcohol being sold in Australia had illegal levels of methanol. We purchased a range of Dirty George spirits: gin, vodka, white rum, whiskey and bourbon, and a bottle of Tom Cobb whiskey from 2 independent bottle shops in Melbourne. The findings are alarming. Lab results found every sample exceeded the legal methanol limit, with 3 recording levels more than 8 times the permitted limit. The company behind Dirty George said it believed the brand had been counterfeited and denied any involvement in the product's contamination. The business behind Tom Cobb's whiskey didn't reply. Our food investigation found products that didn't match the labels, supply chains vulnerable to exploitation, and our regulators struggling to keep pace. And too often, consumers are paying the price. Every product that you tested had some issues. Does that indicate to you it's a systemic problem?
Yeah, it does. I think it's systemic at a macro level, I think is true, right? I think there's no question, and the data I don't think you can interpret any other way. You have to assume that it's in most of the aisles and it's not just an Australian problem.
We have people who are putting their faith in this regulator every day. Every time that they buy a product off the shelf, every time they put food in their mouths, they're assuming that there is a strong regulator backing up food safety standards.
It's open season on food fraud, and that shouldn't happen in a country like Australia. We spend billions on food, and it should be properly labelled. We're behind overseas standards.
When I'm walking to a supermarket, I want to trust the brands, I want to trust the labels, and believe what's being sold to me.
Labels shouldn't lie.